And then the next day I got an email from my boss saying that we really had high hopes for you because your resume was great and you have background in events, but you just weren't assertive enough. This just might not be a good fit. After being sad about it for a day or two, I just said, screw it, I'm gonna do this myself. Hi, I'm Shamila, and over the past 10 years, I've planned over 1,000 weddings. People often ask me how I even ended up in the wedding business. And I think every experience that I've ever had actually helped me get to this point. Growing up in a Desi household, I always saw careers as black and white. If you wanted to be a doctor, you went to med school. If you wanted to be a lawyer, you'd go to law school. And if you wanted to work in the corporate world, you'd go and get your MBA. When I was younger, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do. So instead, I focused on what I liked. And that was volunteering and different opportunities to help people. I actually volunteered so much that I got the presidential award, which I think only 1% of kids in the US get, but that just goes to show how many experiences I got at volunteering, which was great. So naturally, in college, all my work centered around nonprofit organizations. I loved new experiences and helping different kinds of people, whether it was kids or elderly or at the library or at holiday events. I just loved the opportunity to be able to help people and have new experiences. So at that first job that I had at a nonprofit organization, I started off at a company that kind of geared resources towards kids, and it would teach kids when they were like 3 to 4 years old how to call 911, which seems very basic, but when you're that young, you don't know the basics of your names, your address, why to call, what to call. So they made it a fun way for kids to learn how to call 911 and in what situations. So they provided resources, mascots, cartoons, coloring books, things of that sort. But what I actually got to do was help organize what they called the Heroes Ceremony, which was when a child called 911 and helped save a life or property. We actually held a whole award ceremony for them where any of the law enforcement officers who were involved and the 911 dispatcher would come and they were awarded a certificate. There was a press conference held, the mayor and city officials would come, and there would be a huge luncheon. But at just 18, 19 years old, that is what I was in charge of putting together. And at that time, that felt huge. I felt like I was, a part of something big, and I was given such important responsibilities at such a young age, which is why I really loved the events, because I got to see it from start to finish, and I put in all the work and got to see it come to life. Aside from the hero ceremonies that we worked on, there was a ton of other events that this company did. They held golf tournaments, they held Christmas events for foster kids, they had mentorship programs for teen moms, giving them the right resources and everything in between. But not only did I learn how to plan and execute events in that time at the company, I got to understand that that's something that I was really good at. And I was great at putting together a team, explaining to volunteers what to do and taking lead on the day of, and then really organizing it in a way that would be easy for others to execute. And I just felt like a corporate job wouldn't really do that. And what I saw my peers doing was kind of sitting at a desk, and I wanted to do the opposite. I wanted to be on my feet and really hands-on, and this opportunity really allowed me to do that. From that foundation, it really led me into other events. So I realized that nonprofit kind of had a plateau when it came to how much money you could really make. And although I loved it, I decided to move into corporate events. And I started off with hospitality for a restaurant company, and I helped open a bunch of their new restaurants. It was a national chain, so I got to travel a lot. Then I moved on to cybersecurity events and helped with their meetings and events and trade shows. And that entire time I was working these jobs, I was really trying to find my place, and it just didn't fit. The passion that I had with events was great, and I loved organizing, but it was just really lacking the creative element, which is what I saw in weddings. And what I saw in weddings was that amazing creative side that my job lacked, so I wanted to get in on that. While I was holding on to my normal 9-to-5s, I also tried several internships with florists, just trying to become, part of the wedding industry. And I saw these florists coming up with these amazing ideas and being able to execute these grand events. And I thought, I just want to be a part of that. And I could be a designer. So I went in with a completely different internship, which was a design internship. And I thought, this is going to be my dream job. And boy, was I wrong. When you think of design, you think about picking up different fabrics, looking at color swatches, deciding what flowers look good together. But that's actually not what you do. What you do 3 to 4 days out of the week is literally just cleaning up the inventory, using glass cleaner on the different vases, inventorying that, storing it in boxes. And it was super labor labor intensive and not as creative as what I imagined. And I couldn't see myself doing that for the next 4 years. Although I love the creative aspect of weddings, I just didn't see myself being a designer. I just kept trying, and I even tried so hard that at one point I created my own portfolio. I put it up on Craigslist, and I would offer to come meet couples at their house to do a consultation. I don't know what I was thinking about doing something so dangerous like meeting strangers online and literally showing up to their house with floral samples, but I actually booked a couple weddings that way and thought I would be a florist until I realized how much work it was, and it just wasn't for me. While being introduced to the world of weddings through these design internships, I actually stumbled on wedding coordinators, something that I'd never seen or even heard of. I always kind of looked at Desi weddings as something so overwhelming, glamorous, and super hard to get into. I couldn't imagine doing that, and I'd never even heard of a wedding planner in the Desi community. And we're talking about 15 years ago. This wasn't the norm back then. Friends and family would all help organize events, and the main part of that would be the designer. Nobody really had a wedding planner or a wedding manager or event manager at that time. So when I learned about event coordinators, it was kind of like a light bulb moment for me where I'm like, wow, I get to be a part of it without the labor part, and I get to be a part of the glitz and glam, and I can do what I'm best at, which is back-end organization and day of communication. So I'm like, this is the perfect fit. I need to be doing this. And there was only one company at that time. So I talked to my supervisor at one of the design internships, and I asked if she would mind if I applied to this other company. She said, no, go ahead. I think you'd be great. I can even write you a recommendation. So I was super excited. And once I applied, I actually threw in an over-the-top cover letter on why it would be a great fit because I was so excited to do this. And luckily, I landed the internship and I got to work my first wedding thinking that this is my new 5-year plan. I'm going to join this company as an intern, work myself up, and then, hopefully this will be my new career. Again, I was very, very wrong. I got to work my first internship, which was amazing. That day really was eye-opening. I didn't know that there were so many different facets to what an event planner did. And I didn't get to be super hands-on. I was basically just put in charge of guiding guests to the right area and keeping them away from the reception space until it was ready. But I did get an insight as to all of the different things that an event coordinator does and how much involvement they have in keeping things on time and on schedule. So I thought it was a great experience. I walked away thinking, oh my God, I really want to do this. This is amazing. And then the next day I got an email from my boss saying that we really had high hopes for you because your resume was great and you have background in events, but you just weren't assertive enough. This just might not be a good fit. And I was devastated. I think my jaw hit the floor and I was so sad because it was literally the only company that I knew of around at that time. And all my dreams and hopes were locked into me growing with this company. And I was just told, hey, you're not really good enough. We can try you out at one more event, but we just don't feel like this is a good fit. After being sad about it for a day or two, I just said, screw it. I'm going to do this myself. I don't need that company. I'm going to start my own. And that's how SoCal Event Planners was born. My biggest challenge when I first started was people didn't really understand my role, especially parents of the brides and grooms. Again, this is 15 years ago when no one had event planners or coordinators. It's totally normal now, and it's kind of expected now to have at least a coordinator, but back then I spent a majority of time just kind of educating others on what my job actually was and sitting back and watching them see me in action to kind of fully have it click and for them to understand. A lot of times parents just thought I was the designer, just sticking around for the event, but really they got to see me in action to understand, oh, she's keeping us on track for the timeline. She's lining us up for the entrances. She's telling us when to be dismissed for dinner, and really giving that education was the hardest challenge that I had when I first started because people just didn't get it. I think the first 5 years of when I started the company was just spent around getting people to understand what it is that we did. And then once they saw the value in having a coordinator there and then taking away their stress, people were very receptive to it and started kind of letting others know in the community that through word of mouth that this is what you need at your wedding. And I think I'm very proud to say that 15 years ago, there was only one other company that was around, the one that said no to me, which is no longer around. And then there was us. And then in the last, I would say 10 years, there's so many coordinators that have popped up. And it's because people see the value in having a coordinator at a minimum. A planner is great to have and I recommend it, but at least at a minimum to have a coordinator on the day of is amazing. And I think what sets us as SoCal event planners apart is we're always willing to learn. and take on new trends and understand what's going on. It's not just doing what we've done in the past and sticking to it. It's very easy to fall into that trap of, well, we've always done it this way, so it works. We've always done it that way, so why would we change? I think why we've stood against the test of time, because a lot of coordinators only last in the industry a few years and then they leave, versus we've been around for 13 years now. It's because as SoCal event planners, we are bride-centric. We want to make sure that whatever our brides want, we follow their vision. We don't just do things because it's been done that way. We do it because our brides want things done a certain way, and we give them opportunities to showcase their personality into the weddings rather than just doing a cookie cutter event. So we want to make sure the guests also experience that. You don't just want a wedding planner who says, okay, we need tables, linens, chairs, design. No, you want a wedding planner who comes in and says, hey, how do you want your guests to feel when they come into an event space? How is that going to look different from another wedding they went to last week? Is it the food? Is it the experience? Is it the fact that it's super organized? Is it the fact that there is something a little more custom that they see versus other weddings? And that's how we want to make it. It's an experience and it's a reflection of you as a couple. We want your guests to experience exactly what you've envisioned. As a wedding planner that's been around for over 13 years, one of the ways that we continue to strive and do well is by continuing to learn. There's so many resources out there, from classes to certifications to just taking on master classes. These are things that you can do to stay on trend and understand what is out there in the market. There's so many different tools, especially for wedding planners and those in the industry. Pen and paper just does not cut it anymore. Especially as your team grows, you want to have different systems for project management and be able to kind of visually give that to your clients to be able to see what's kind of being worked on in the background. They have no idea unless you give that information to them in a very concise format, so they're able to follow along and see what you're working on. Like I mentioned, I worked at 3 different design houses for internships because I thought I wanted to do design. So I definitely think that having that background in design is super helpful. When brides come to me for their wedding, the one element that I'm the most excited about is bringing their vision to life. Because of our design background and knowing what goes well together, it's the nitty-gritty details that don't scare me. I love making sure that the whole event space looks cohesive, whether that's small nitty-gritty details like the coffee cups having stickers with their logo on it, or the front of all the dessert carts being cohesive with the same logo. These are small things, but they really elevate your event to the next level. So you're going to want to make sure you have an event planner with a little bit of a design background, especially if you don't hire a full service designer, because that added help really will change the way and look of your event. I have repeated clients and celebrity clients and VIP clients that I've worked with throughout the years, and the major reason for that is I work with integrity. There's a ton of vendors in the wedding industry that pop up left and right. One thing that really shows is those with no integrity are gone quickly. It's word of mouth and your reputation that's really going to outlast the years. If you have one bad event or if you do something wrong to one bride, you're done. The reason that we've been around for so long, and I really take pride in this, is we do our best and 100% with honest integrity throughout the process. There's no shortcuts. We're not trying to shortcut our brides. We want to make sure your day is special, and we take care of brides in such a way that they're going to now recommend us to their family, their friends. I've had families where I've done every sibling's wedding and their second wedding sometimes. So it's honestly all about building that relationship. And I think a lot of people who come into the wedding industry are there just to make money. Of course, this is your business and your career, but I think I'm more about brand building and building relationships. I want people to walk away saying, SoCal Event Planners did my wedding, and that speaks for itself. 90% of what we do is weddings, but there were a few hard years when COVID hit and everyone had to pivot, including us. At that time, we started doing drive-through events, baby showers, gender reveals, birthday parties, etc. Because those events were so much fun to plan and it gave us an opportunity to see another side of events, I decided to continue doing those once COVID was over and we resumed doing weddings, but we still do amazing events. So think of a $200,000 gender reveal. Although 90% of what we do is wedding related, we're definitely one of the standout companies that do other types of events as well. I often get asked, Shamila, you've been doing this for so long, so what's next? What's your 5-year plan? And I think because we've been doing this for so long and I've learned so much, I'm ready to share this knowledge. I want to share it with brides, and not just brides and couples, but also wedding planners, whoever wants to come into this industry. I think it's such a disservice when we have people just popping up, waking up one day and deciding, I'm going to call myself a wedding planner, and they do horribly. We really need to have a system in place to teach wedding planners what is the experience that you need to come into this field and do a great job so brides and couples can really rely on your services. I also love to travel, and we've had had the opportunity to do some amazing events in Mexico, the Bahamas, even Turkey. But if you are planning a wedding in Bali, call me, I will do it for free. I'm so excited to be in this YouTube space so I can share my knowledge with brides and wedding planners alike. Thank you for watching, and if you like what you heard, be sure to subscribe and follow along for more.